You're now listening to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Straightforward, no nonsense business advice. Completely unfiltered. Grow your business. Grow your life. Now, here's your host, Brian Fullerton.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Well, welcome to another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. It's your host, Brian Fullerton here. Guys, can't wait to do this episode with you. We have a super special treat, actually in studio guest. I'm looking across from him right now. We got my boy, Mike Bedell, in studio. What's up, Mike?
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good, man. You ready to do this thing?
I am. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
You are one of the most requested people to be on the podcast. Everybody wants to know your story, our story.
Sure.
There's so much stuff we're going to unpackage here. In fact, spoiler alert, this may be a 2-episode podcast.
Ooh, fun.
We were just joking about that because when Mike and I get together, both of our girls know that at minimum it's an hour.
Sure.
And at max it's about a day.
I mean,
we've done it.
It just depends what we got to talk about or how long it's been.
Well, sometimes you and I are talking business. Sometimes we're just talking personal life and being friends. And there's just so many different things that we're going to unpackage. So
love it. This
first episode, my goal is to talk about Bedell Property Management, BPM. You guys have seen Mike all over the place with YouTube and Instagram, and the Debt-Free Landscaper. We're gonna unpackage so many different things here. So I'm really excited about it. Before we jump into it and the whole deal, let's do this. Let's get the 30 to 60 second Mike Bedell snapshot about who you are, where you're from, what your business kind of looks like today, and then we'll jump on into it.
Absolutely. So I'm Mike Bedell, and I live in Milford, Michigan, just maybe 10, 15 minutes down the road from where Brian is here. And so we're in a suburb of Detroit, if you guys haven't already put that together, and about a half hour right in between Detroit and Lansing. So yeah, shout out to our buddy Aaron from Lansing Lawn Care. He's about a half hour from us.
Yep.
And I've lived here my entire life and started out as just the neighborhood lawn care kid and just kept the wheels rolling. Eventually grabbed a degree in horticulture and another one in landscape design and just used that as a platform to excel myself forward. And here I am today continuing to do it and got a plan to do it for another 10 or 15 years or so.
And how long have you been in business? 12, 13?
This is year 16 now.
16 years. Holy cow. Well, it's Bedell has
16 been like formally. I mean, like there was probably another 8 years of like mowing for the neighbors and the family friend when they were out of town. You know, my mom dropped me off and then using the mower in their garage or something because I'm like 14. But like, you know, those all oddly enough put me to where I am today.
I like it. Well, we're gonna unpackage your whole story. There's a lot of lineage that we're gonna get through, so it's gonna be really, really cool. Let's do this. Let's hear from the show sponsor, and then we'll jump right back into it.
Looking to outfit your trailer with the best racks in the industry? Head over to Equipment Defender. Be secure, look professional, be organized, stop thieves and damage in their tracks. Equipment Defender has racks for backpack blowers, trimmers, gas cans, backpack sprayers, and more. Stay organized, stay secure with Equipment Defender. All Equipment Defender racks work in either open or enclosed trailers. Get secure and organized today at equipmentdefender.com. And be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Equipment Defender.
All right, well, we're going to jump into Mr. Mike Bedell's story. So let's go through the whole lineage, man. We got plenty of time here.
Absolutely.
So you've been in business for 16 years, and I'd love to hear how you got into the business, the industry.
Sure.
What was it by choice and design? Did you kind of fall into it? Take it all the way back. You said you were 10, 12, 15 years old maybe and doing the whole deal. Is that where your love of the outdoors came from?
Yeah, so truthfully, the love of the outdoors, like it was totally a beautiful accident. Like it's now like a kind of a funny, laughable thing, but it all goes back to my dad grew up on a farm, so he just has this impeccable work ethic, and he still does.
Sure.
He tried retiring, but he's technically semi-retired, but arguably busier in retirement than he was, and
sure.
I inherited that can't sit still gene, but he wanted me to go get a summer job before you're legally allowed to get a summer job in Michigan unless you have like a family employer.
Sure.
You're allowed to work at any age if it's a family business, but in order to work in Michigan, you need to be, it's like 14 and 9 months, and you need to get a work permit from your school. Mm-hmm. And so my dad had me go up to like the local grocery stores and stuff. And like finally after the third one was like, oh yeah, we're totally hiring. Oh, you're 13? Yeah, you're going to need to come back probably next summer, maybe even the summer after that. My dad was like, okay, like, well, I'm not going to take no for an answer. We're going to figure this out.
Okay.
But like, you're not working those jobs. And he was bemoaning it to the neighbor who was like, well, Mike cuts your lawn. I'd pay him to cut my lawn. You know, I'm paying somebody else. Like, that works. And so my dad's like, hey, found you a job.
Oh,
you're
no.
mowing the neighbor's lawn.
Right.
Right after you're mowing ours. And ours needs cutting. Get out there.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And so 12-year-old me, and, I was focused on like, music and other things and hanging out with friends. And so at the time, like, I didn't like love, it's interesting because I see kids on Instagram, like our buddy Scott Bowers,
Yep.
who's of that age now and like loves this stuff.
Yep.
Or Connor, who we've
Counter
hung
Shop.
out. Yeah. Like
Aiden's A's Lawn Care.
Exactly. Like these guys who like love it. And like, I have so much respect for them because I did not love it like that at that age.
No.
Like, and to me, it was just kind of like, yeah, it's cool. I get paid, some money to do this, but it's kind of like a chore, responsibility. But, so I did that for a couple years, and then I actually was able to get a job. And my friends hooked me up with a dishwashing job at the local restaurant that a lot of kids, the group in Farmington Hills, got an opportunity to work at. And it was great. I had a job, and after 4 months, I realized how awesome cutting lawns was. I started working there in like January, and I could not wait for spring to come fast enough because it dawned on me two things. I could make the same amount of money I was making washing dishes in cutting a couple hours worth of lawns.
Right.
I could cut the lawns when I wanted to rather than like having to be at work at a certain time. And then I quickly learned the advantages of being my own boss.
Sure.
And I got a little bit of the rough end of the deal. I get to realize that now that I'm older. And the fun part about having your older friends hook you up with a job is like the whole going in and interviewing is a big formality. Like you have this job. It's basically like making sure you have a pulse.
Right.
Are like going to somewhat be punctual and like have a personality and getting like your start date and your t-shirt size. And I was off to the races washing dishes. In fact, I think I might have started the same day.
What was the starting pay? Do you remember back in the day? $7, $6?
If that,
yeah,
probably. And that was like, it was like right about minimum wage, as was
right.
Michigan back then. And no one really complained about it, oddly enough, back then. Like $6 was enough, but
yeah.
It was what it was. And
did you like working outdoors? Was that?
So, I mean, that was also like, we want to get into residual bonuses. I didn't hate being outside. Like at that point, you're not like having to trudge through rainy days to stay on a schedule. Like if it rains, you just go cut it the next day because you have 3-4 lawns to mow, right?
Sure.
And they're doing with a little push mower and they're all like across the street from you or next door.
Yeah.
So you don't have any of those industry worries. But like I was saying, so the advantages are you get the job really easy. The bad news that I later realized is that you get all the little crappy jobs that no one wants to do because you're like the little friend. Like, ooh, they want us to do what? Yeah, we're not going to do that. But guess who is? Hey, Mike, come here.
Oh, no.
And so after 4 months of that, like, I was so done. I couldn't wait. And I remember I used like band activities that we had going on as like an overarching excuse to like not work certain shifts and just get out of there. And I remember like my parents weren't super pleased when I quit that job and was like, no, I'm just cutting some lawns this summer. Like I'll do some extra mulch jobs or something. But like that was like the first little fire that was lit under me in terms of like, I need to figure out how to be my own boss here because like I'm not sure I'm digging this working for other people thing.
Sure.
I see that you can make your own hours, you can charge, you can know your worth, you can charge what you're worth, and if I don't want to do that project, I can say, yeah, no, that's not going to work, versus when your boss is like, no, you're going to clean the broken glass under the pop machine right now.
Right.
You just hopefully find some gloves and you do it, and it's nasty and moldy under there and super gross. Well, but I did it. And realized that I didn't want to do it anymore.
Well, it's funny because, very similar story to me. Same thing. I'm cutting grass like 10 to 15-ish. Sure. And then at 16, my mom was like, it's so funny when we do podcasts or when I do podcasts, because unless you like grow up in Michigan, you grow up blue collar, or you know, in like the Midwest of Michigan, right? Like your and I story is so very similar in like the expectations and the conversations.
Oh yeah.
So what I say is, when I was 16, my mom's like, all right, well, you're done cutting grass, time to go get a big boy job. And I'm like, well, that, you know, I worked at Little Caesars, and you know this whole story, but I was making $6.74 an hour. If I would have just cut lawns, I would have made double or triple that.
Oh yeah.
But that was the expectation. You go get a job. And
See, my parents were like, you're doing both, and they were like, what do you mean you're only doing one?
Oh yeah.
So, I see where your mom is coming from.
But that's what your expectation is. And then like we quickly in the Midwest and Michigan specifically, and right where Mike Bedell and I live, is you go to, you know, school, you get good grades, and then you go to college. And I say this on other podcasts, but it's not if you're going to go to college, it's, hey, which college are you going to? And then,
man, we can go down that road too.
Well, I hope you do, because nobody understands these stories. Like you know, when I talk to other guys who grew up living in a trailer park, and I'm like, yeah, the single wide people thought you were wealthy living in a double wide. Like they get that joke. But if you've never been there, you don't know what I'm saying. And then other folks, I'm like, yeah, if you're in Michigan, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but as you're getting older and you're going through this whole lineage, you probably had these conversations about college and being your own boss, and your dad actually has a pretty successful background in corporate America.
Yes.
You know, you can dance on that if you want to, but so you had this perspective of like wanting to be self-employed, and then your dad also kind of was on the other end of the spectrum. Well, how'd that conversation go as you're 16, 17, 18?
So thankfully, my dad said one thing that he always does remember saying this, and this was kind of like his, like, oh, okay, yeah, I did say that. And it was like when I was like 16 or 17, and I think he was like trying to pump me up on the fact that I was like doing some of the neighbors' lawns, and maybe I probably like just done some mulch too or something like that. And he was like, wow, my kid's out there making money, about time. But he was like, well, Mike, because in full disclosure, my dad was in the mall development industry for 30 years and managed projects all over the continental U.S. and Hawaii and Puerto Rico. And so in doing so, though he worked for a large publicly traded company that was obviously very corporately run, in doing all those projects, you're hiring lots of different contractors who are on the other end of things, maybe just have a handful of trucks or are small guys. And so he got to kind of see all the flavors of life. And he did say to me when he was like 16 or 17, he's like, it just seems like all the guys who work for themselves, like, that's where it's at.
They seem happier.
You need to figure out how to do that.
Well, how old were you at that age?
I was 16 or 17. So I remember we were driving in the vehicle that I had at the time, and he was in the passenger seat. And I remember him saying that, and me just being like, that's good.
Might be something there.
And then I ended up kind of circling back to that like a year or so later, when, much like you were saying, so about going to school, right? We all kind of get, okay, where are you going to? 4-year university.
Sure.
And I, you know, as you have already mentioned, I did go get a degree in horticulture and landscape design.
Where did you go?
Oakland Community College.
Oakland Community College. Okay,
Yep,
cool.
Yep.
So you have a degree in horticulture and landscape design?
Yeah, I've got an associate's degree in ornamental horticulture and then a second associate's degree in landscape design.
Very cool. Very cool.
So, but those were kind of things that stumbled along the way. Right when I was a senior in high school, I had the opportunity to play in a band that had some momentary success.
Cool.
And came with some really cool opportunities. That was probably like the peak of it, was the amazing opportunities and some free gear. And
what do they call that? Like your honeymoon, like twilight year of, like, you know, between high school and college? What do they call that? The I'm going to take a break.
Best year of your life. Well, so the fun thing is I never actually took a break.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to potentially take a break, and because Interscope took a little pass on us, and our drummer decided to go back to Berklee School of Music because Interscope took it. I was lucky that I didn't take a break, but those were all opportunities. Like my senior year of high school, I was missing some school to go play shows.
Oh, wow.
Do things of that nature. So because it was like that, I had some pretty heated conversations with my school guidance counselor because I was like the only kid at one point that hadn't declared what college he was going to.
Oh, yeah.
And she pulled me aside and we got into it. And thankfully, I ran the high school auditorium at the time and was oddly enough close with the principal because he kept pulling me out of class to like set up microphones.
Sure.
And his door happened to be open around the corner from the counseling office when I got into a screaming match with my counselor. And I always remember him walking in like, what is going on in here? Hey, Michael, come with me. Like, I think this will all be okay. And him just being like, what's going on? I'm like, she's telling me I got to go to school next year or I'm going to fail. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think I've got some other opportunities going on here that I ought to explore.
Sure.
I'm not saying she's wrong, but for me saying I'm wrong unless she's right, like I just don't agree with that. And he, I never had to meet with her anymore. He kind of put the end to that, but he agreed. He was like, okay, yeah, no, there are some other opportunities coming your way. And then they actually offered me a job running the auditorium.
Oh my gosh.
And it was kind of awkward telling your high school teachers that you didn't want to be like them. Like, no offense, but guys, I don't really want to grow up and work at my high school for the rest of my life. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for what I wanted to do and where I saw myself going, that was not happening. So I took a pass on running my high school auditorium.
Okay.
And had honestly like one of the funnest summers of my life playing in that band. Like,
this is long-haired Mike Bedell.
You can look it up on Facebook. There are some pretty awesome remnant photos of some of the fun experiences I had.
What musician or what instrument?
I played guitar in that band.
That's right. So
a little bit of backup vocals, but mainly just guitar.
We've seen you shredded on Instagram with Jobber.
Yeah. They asked me to pull that out of the hat, and I was like, I'm not gonna say no.
Well, there's a whole season of you that I don't know if we would have been friends in that window.
Oh, definitely.
Because you were hanging out with different people.
Oh yeah.
You were doing the rock and roll thing, man. And
I hung out with a lot of people back then that I would never hang out with now.
Or have your kids.
They
weren't bad people, just a different culture.
Not like the people I was close with. I'd still hang out with them now, but there were a lot of acquaintances that just like, it's real bizarre that I hung out with them, ironically. And
well, you've got to hang out with them. You can name drop if you don't want to. That's fine too. But it's funny. Like you have this like season of your life where you're hanging out with people that if you equate like rap and music and Detroit, and you would have been hanging with those said people
100%.
And people can
the people who produce their music and perform with them on stage and all those. You guys can figure out probably who we're talking about.
It's just crazy to me. I'm like, what? But that's the area in the section that you grew up in and the doors you were hanging out in.
It was literally, once again, kind of like lawn care where I beautifully stumbled into that. I literally stumbled into this. Like I'd always been the guitar kid, and a friend of a friend was like, hey, these older kids need a guitar player, and you could probably play the parts. Go try out for them. And I tried out for them, and they're like, dude, you rock, but you're still in high school, so absolutely not.
Right.
And and then like fast forward 6 or 7 months, they called me back and were like, so you're still in high school, but you're only in it for another couple months, and we've gone through 2 guitar players, and
we need you.
Our other guitar players like, dude, call Mike or I'm gonna call him. Screw you guys.
Wow.
So I overnight got the opportunity, and like a week later, I'm like missing school to go play shows, and it was awesome. That was really, really cool. But then it all kind of flatlined. And thankfully, during that time, I had gotten a scholarship to Wayne State University.
Oh.
And I remember like almost flaking on some of the like prerequisite like have to go tour the campus stuff, because like I like was either out of town or just coming back in town, and like it was one of those like, oh gosh, like I guess it was more my parents being like, dude, you need to go to this or you're in a lot of trouble. Me being like, I still live at home, okay, but not like really. I was going to it not even believing I was really going to go there, but then I did end up going there for a year.
Well, I was gonna say, what was the offer? Did they for like a business degree or marketing or
basically? All right, so in Michigan in the 90s, there was some standardized testing called the MEP test.
Oh, the MEP. Good old MEP.
Yeah, and not to toot my own horn, but I did extraordinarily well in the math section and the science section.
Was that when it was like out of like 40 out of like 50, was like a good score? Or was that the 1700, like the SATs?
Dude, I know. All I know is I remember I did well enough that I accrued enough scholarship money that I could go to any public university for my freshman year for free.
Heck yeah, dude.
And so
we'll take that.
and so I went there partly because like it was close. It was convenient.
Sure.
I was extraordinarily easy accepted. And like at that point, I was kind of going path of least resistance. It was a good backup plan.
Sure.
But I wasn't trying to do the whole tour colleges thing and like get into stuff. I took an ACT. I got an acceptable score on it the first time.
Right.
Based on that and my MEP situation, they let me into Wayne State. And actually, beyond that, I kind of actually got paid to go there because they have to do something with your money if you don't use all of it. So I had to go pick up a check at the beginning of the semester that like bought all my books and some of the gas and parking. So I was honestly super privileged to have that opportunity.
Sure.
I know a lot of people work very, very hard for that. And I did work for it. I mean, I took those tests and those were my scores, not somebody else's. But it literally at the end of that first year, I was like, okay, well, this is great. I didn't waste a year of my life. I got a bunch of prerequisites out, but I will always remember walking out of my last class at Wayne State. It was an English class, and I remember taking the final and walking out of Old Main at Wayne State going, I'm never coming back here.
Really?
Yep. And it wasn't like anything polarizing. Nothing bad happened. I was just like, cool. This has served its purpose.
Right.
And if you come back next year, you're spinning your tires. Like, you need to go figure out what you're going to do. Insert lawn care landscaping.
Were you still doing lawn care and landscaping on the side at this? You're what, 18, 19-ish?
100%. So, musicians are not wealthy people for the most part. So ironically, even though I was like touring and playing shows, I never stopped cutting lawns. If anything, I was recruiting my bandmates to like spread mulch or like, hey dude, I got to get caught up on these lawns and then I got rain coming or whatever. Like you're grabbing the blower and like, oh, do I have to? Dude, I'll give you $20. Oh my God, I'm broke. $20 is amazing. So
that's $1 million at that age.
So, the original iterations of Bedell Property Management, before it was formerly even Bedell Property Management, it was literally just a whole slew of musicians who happened to be in town at the moment working for me.
So you had this labor pool and you put it to work.
Ironically, yeah, dude. Where was that? Where is that now?
No.
Like I have jokingly thought. I've said this to my girlfriend about like I should figure out some way to put starving musicians together with landscapers. I just feel like the two could kind of help each other out, assuming you could get the musicians to show up.
Sure.
Because that was always, even as my friends, they were going to show up late and like
hungover,
and who knows what type condition. And
so there's two camps out there that need help: musicians and broke baseball kids. That's my answer. It's always the athlete college kids.
Those kids need money too, and they'll work a lot harder than musicians.
And their team. Well, I don't know about that. I've never hired musicians, but
I can speak from experience, Brian.
Okay, so
they're not bad, but they're not good.
Interesting breed, right?
Oh, well, yeah, 100%. Like you're gonna have some colorful characters on your job sites, and depending, maybe even some egos, but like they're desperate egos who really need that $30.
or it's either that or the Volkswagen van ain't moving down the road, So
yeah, but I mean those were like back in the good old days, when we were still young and trying to figure things out, and truthfully, no one expected anything from us at that point in time, and.
You're just hustling, dude. You're just putting it together.
100%.
What so many of us do.
And so that summer was really the transition where I actually played a bunch of shows with that band again that summer, because that was right when like music festivals started to become a thing.
Yeah.
So we were doing less touring, but we had some cool festival shows to play on that year.
Well, music was just growing like crazy in 2000 to 2005.
Yep.
TRL. We're taking it back, but then there's the rock and roll side of it, and alternative rock.
I mean, like it was well timed. It was a metal band that was right when Headbangers Ball came back on MTV. It was very well timed.
Interesting.
And but like I realized over that summer that like. Yeah, this dream is dying in terms of like being viable. And I was very fortunate at that time to start forging relationships with people who weren't successful, let alone just in the rap industry, but were successful as like rock musicians and were actively on tour, did things like play Ozfest.
Wow.
And I got to see how amazing that was and how everyone perceived them to be hyper successful, yet they were like super excited to help me spread some mulch for really some extra money, because like what people didn't see is they came home in debt tens of thousands of dollars to their label for that opportunity.
Sure.
Not all situations are you getting paid to play music. Some of them as a band, you're paying to be on that that stage.
Sure.
And yeah, you're going to sell some t-shirts, but you're not making any of that back.
Interesting.
Today, maybe you will in the future.
Yeah.
Hopefully. If not, your band will break up and you can divide up the debt instead of the money you have.
So
thankfully we didn't have any debt to divide up.
right. Well, it's funny to me, like just some quick takeaways there, and we'll probably transition to the next phase because it's just one of those things where if you don't want to go to college, or you're like, I'm not sure if I want to go to college, awesome. If you want to go to college, awesome. Like I've never steered anybody left or right to do either choice. I just think you got to figure out like what you're trying to do.
Do you? That's the takeaway you can take from this is like, don't let us, your parents' opinion, or in my case, my school guidance counselor, like thank God for my principal, Mr. Jones, being a really, really good guy. I know he's still a good guy to this day. He's, I haven't seen him in a while, but I know other people who have.
Yeah.
Still the same old person, and he was somebody who actually, like, even though he's a school principal of a public school, he totally agree with what you're saying. Like, hey, not every kid needs to follow a cookie cutter formula. Right. Like, they need to go follow themselves, and that's what will allow them to be successful.
Dude, I would totally agree. Like, who says it in like a different form today is Gary Vee. He calls it like tasting. Yeah. Like go taste, go, like a wine tasting, a food tasting, a bar. You go to a bar, like taste different things. Try 20 different things in 24 months, and
no one expects anything of you at 18 or 20 years old. Your parents might act like they do a lot, but I'm telling you right now, as someone who's now like an adult in society and sees 18 to 20-year-old kids and starts to now think they look kind of young.
Yeah.
No one's expecting anything from you guys at all. So go do you. Like, go try some stuff. And you just, the last thing I'll say is there will come a time, and it might be a couple years, it might be a decade after that point in time, where like, you do need to figure it out sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
But like, stop and smell those roses. If anything, Brian, if I had to do it again, I wouldn't do anything differently.
Sure.
I would have just enjoyed those experiences way more because there was probably half to 2/3 of the time where I didn't understand at my young age that this wasn't the rest of my life.
Right.
This fun wasn't going to happen forever.
Yeah.
And that, enjoy this amazing chaos as it's going on.
Sure.
Because people probably won't even believe you when you tell the story in 10 years.
Well, and here's the thing too, and I don't want to beat this as a dead horse on my podcast in general, but if you don't want to go to college and you're square peg round hole, like dude, I'm telling, like, folks get it. And it's incredible. The reason I talk about it so much is because I get so many people from 16 to 25 that are, high school and college, and everybody's breathing down their neck to make a decision, and they're like, well, I don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, by the time when I start answering that back, it kind of turns into Pandora's box, right? Because I'm like, look, dude, I don't know what to tell you what to do. And here's the deal, like, in Michigan, specifically in our school system, dude, it's not if you're going to college, it's what college you're going to. And if you don't say Michigan State, OU, Wayne,
Central Michigan, Ferris State, Lake Superior State, if you're not naming one of those big public universities, Wayne State, like, people look at you like you're instantly about to just tank your life.
You're literally committing financial suicide because you're going to be blue collar at best, or probably a quote unquote loser, whatever that means.
I remember my guidance counselor telling me, she's like, do you understand what happens to people who don't go to college after high school? And I remember saying, tell me all about it.
Yeah. Well, nowadays we usually find out that 1 percentile ends up being so fidgety that they somehow, some way started their own company, build a big team around them to solve all of their inadequacies, and then along the way somehow figure out how to get wealthy.
The best part was that same year the movie Old School came out, and right at the beginning, Vince Vaughn's character has it's like Speaker City or something. He owns this big company, and he says to Will Ferrell's character at the beginning, he goes, "Are you kidding me? I own 6 Speaker Cities, and I can hardly read," or something like that. And I just remember laughing because I had just previously been thinking about that gal yelling at me, and I'm like, dude, the example's right here. Like, here's somebody who's probably in a more money than me, her, any of us. And Grant's a fictional character, but based on several reality, things that are real in every market. There's somebody like that everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I look back on it, I guarantee you I'd be, the yearbook quotes, right, and the voting, like least likely to succeed, or most twitches the most, right, or most goofy, or most class clown, right.
People would have figured that I would have just done something music related. So the fact that I don't necessarily do really any of that now, and that's not how I define myself, and that's not how I define my success, and truthfully, music doesn't really play into my wealth strategy at all in my future. Yeah.
Unless you're shredding it for Jobber, because I mean they love you. So maybe that's the extra income for eating out category.
I'll say this: the only thing. So my takeaway from the music industry was that I literally had dinner with someone in this past week who's a former employee who was left working with me to go tour the world as a musician, and now is no longer doing that because he's gotten just the freshest taste of how there's no money in this. And so him and I were talking about how you got to be the biggest of the big, and really it helps to be a solo artist versus in a band to really clean up the way that things are just run now. And
sure.
And but the exception to the rule is there are guys on Instagram and YouTube who play guitar, who've never played a show, who literally, it's their house, their mom's basement, whatever.
Little studio.
They've got the kind of similar size to probably where we're sitting right now in your podcast studio, Brian.
Yeah.
And they're killing it,
sure.
and they're making so much more money
sure.
than artists who are playing arguably anything smaller than a Little Caesars Arena in Detroit.
Right.
The people are playing those levels of shows are, unless they've committed financial suicide previously, and that's just destroying all their future cash flow and income. Those people have they've got a big shovel. They're making a lot of income every show.
Right.
But when you're not at that level,
I can only imagine. Well, let's
be better. I can't tell you the amount of touring musicians who I've been privileged enough to hang out on their tour bus when they come into Detroit, who jokingly said over a beer, "I should have started a landscaping company." It's really ironic when they live in France too, and you're like, "Yeah, dude, I hear there's really nice landscaping there. You probably could have made a lot of money with a landscaping company."
Yeah, drive your diesel truck down in Paris. Let me know how that goes, right?
Yeah.
I was well, let's do this. So that's kind of season 1 or phase 1 of BPM, the exception.
Yeah, it definitely made me realize that hey, you could go do this music thing once again.
Yeah.
You'd be a lot more in control. There was a lot of freedom and control with being a musician, but when you're in a band, you can be negatively affected by the decisions of other people that play in your band extraordinarily easily. And that was honestly kind of the kiss of the death. It was really, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but it was the actions of one specific band member that cost some opportunities for us definitely changed the trajectory of it. And it's fine. I'm sure everyone probably had some share of blame, sort of.
Sure.
Actually, probably not really, but
well, let's do this. Let's take a quick break because I'm going to grab a sip of water here. Let's hear again from our sponsor for this episode, which is Ballard Inc. and Core Ballard, and then let's unpackage the rest of the story and talk about BPM 2.0.
Love it.
And the second season, because what your company's grown into the last 10, 12 years has been super incredible, remarkable, very blessed, and I think it merits being talked about. So let's do this. Let's hit the button really quick. We'll rock and roll right back with you guys.
Looking to outfit your trailer with the best racks in the industry? Head over to Equipment Defender. Be secure, look professional, be organized, stop thieves and damage in their tracks. Equipment Defender has racks for backpack blowers, trimmers, gas cans, backpack sprayers, and more. Stay organized, stay secure with Equipment Defender. All Equipment Defender racks work in either open or enclosed trailers. Get secure and organized today at equipmentdefender.com. And be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Equipment Defender.
Of course, if you guys are making any upgrades with your mowers and all that stuff this spring, Brian's 10, save you 10%. I'm pretty much everything in the world besides a Ford truck. But again, maybe we'll get Ford to sponsor the show one day. So stay tuned, right?
Hey, that's what's up, dude.
Brian's 10 worldwide. Hopefully the goal is to get it in with Ford and then Chick-fil-A.
Yes, I was going to say, maybe even reverse that order because Chick-fil-A is opening up 2 miles from here, isn't it?
It is.
3 miles.
I might camp. No, it's 1 mile. And I might camp out there. Literally be first in line.
I drove by there and it looks like they're actually making strides at building that place out for a minute. Dude, it was funny. I heard advertising on the radio and I was like, oh, does that mean they're actually doing something? And I drove by and I was like, this is a blank site. Get to work.
Took them 2 months to build the foundation. right? You can do stories and analogies and parables all day on this one. In less than the last 30 days, they framed the whole dang thing. And I bet you 30 days from now, they'll be open. And your boy's going to be right up front knocking on the door. And I might live stream it on my YouTube channel, like the goal is to get with Chick-fil-A and then to get a Tesla. So.
I see a potential marketing event there where you somehow convince way too many people that they're offering Brian's 10 on their opening day and then just cause chaos because they're busy enough being open on their first day. And now every other customer's like, yeah, but Brian's 10 though, right?
We'll do a Michigan takeover.
Boom.
Oh my God. Chick-fil-A.
Meet up on opening day at Chick-fil-A when they're already busy enough and they can't have any parking spots and then the landscape trucks roll in and we just like take that thing right over.
If any of you guys work at Chick-fil-A or can have your people get in touch with my people.
This is your warning shot.
Let's do it. Let's make this happen.
Please open up. It's time for a get together.
I can't wait to pound the 30-piece nugget meal the day they open. So, all right, so let's keep it going. So you spent the first 4 or 5 years, you got the foundation built, but then the company really started to grow.
Because I was like not trying to be a musician anymore. I realized that I needed to like do this.
So what was the vision always? To grow a multi-million-dollar company? Was to get 10 trucks, 10 crews, right? Is it just to, chisel out a $500,000 a year business? Any, right or wrong answer? There's no right or wrong answer. The idea was to grow and you were just all in? Take it away. What happened over the next 5 to 10 years? Because I met you about 3 years ago, but you got about this decade that I don't really know too much about. So why don't you tell that whole story? Yeah,
great question. So that's actually a lot to open up there because if you asked what I wanted to be at that stage, it probably would be something a lot like our buddy Troy Clogg just down the road here, where I grew up in, like I mentioned, around major mall development where like I referenced, those guys were smaller companies, but not really that small. I mean, none of the guys who were getting those opportunities were like small artisans. They're small in the sense that they've got 10 trucks or something like that.
And there's a lot of that here.
Like, for example, the company that did the landscaping on one of those malls, I was talking with Caleb Allman because it was in his area, and that was the company that did that install was like the company that he looked up to when he was like thinking about maybe getting into the industry, and like that's who he dreamed he wanted to be. And we were both talking about how like, isn't it funny when you're like younger and you're just kind of cutting lawns like as a neighborhood lawn kid and you see that big company around town with all those trucks and trailers and you're like, that's a ticket, I need to be them. And you have no context or idea of like what it's going to take to get there, all the pain, all the heartache,
the financials, the investment.
You can't wrap your head around any of that at that time, but that's what you at very face value believe success to be.
Sure.
And so you're like, well, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to be successful,
right,
I clearly just need to be literally the carbon copy of them.
Right.
And so the first couple years, thankfully, I made a partnership with another company who we haven't talked about here, Midwest Landscape, who ironically sold me my first commercial lawnmower. I bought a used $800 belt-driven 36-inch walk behind.
Yeah.
And they helped like load it up in the back of a pickup truck. And we're like, hey,
you're in business.
You want to plow some snow for us this winter? And I was like, yeah, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
And then I revisited that later and was like, maybe I do want to plow some snow for these people.
Year-round income.
And I was just going to college at the time. I didn't have my own place. And so, like, did I need the money? No. Like, I was still teaching some guitar lessons. But
sure,
I saw the value in possibly getting to go learn on somebody else's equipment and keeping that relationship going. And so I did that for like a year and a half, maybe. Okay. And then when I went and like had a truck that I wanted to put a plow on, they kept me very busy that first year, actually the first several years, and totally let me cut my teeth into commercial snow and ice management. They fed me summer work. And so that allowed us to grow, it allowed us to get a second truck. My brother got involved in the company for a while.
Sure.
That's the point where we had like 13 or 15 guys, and part of it was being fed work by this bigger company,
right?
And then kind of being egged on by a bigger company that's got maybe 50 employees and 15 trucks and is out there killing it. And then they've got subs out there working away like me,
right?
In my company. So, they've developed this little army that's out there working. And so, I'm seeing that as success. And after a few years of doing that, I started running into this common problem. And I spent the next 4 or 5 years trying to fix this problem before I realized that maybe the problem was me. And that problem was that in our industry, if you're a mid-sized company and you try and put a lot of people in charge and give them a lot of opportunities and responsibilities with the pay to go with it, they're happy to take the pay, but they don't care as much about your business as you do.
Sure.
And I can think of maybe a handful of situations. Thankfully, I only allowed it to be a handful of situations where I got burned big time financially, opportunities taken away, relationships destroyed by the actions of employees. Nothing that I had done. And every single time I was told, like, hey, Mike, we love you.
Right.
You're great.
Right.
But you don't come and cut our lawn. Your guys do.
Right.
That's going to be the problem. And in time, these were people who, when I started, it was just me.
Yep.
And it was me and a few derelict musician friends.
Yep.
And then now it was people out there with company shirts on and company hats, wearing the uniform, showing up in the company truck with the company trailer, but sometimes making bad decisions or just mailing it in and not caring. And at that time, my business was starting to focus in on nicer and nicer stuff. So therein lies the problem. You can't do that on nicer and nicer stuff because they will just go get somebody else.
100%.
And so after about the first 5 years, like you said, what happened to that decade that we don't know each other?
Yeah.
First 5 or so years, 5 to 7 years was kind of just repeating that. It was like spin cycle of that, like taking good opportunities and some of them falling off the radar because of bad decision making or bad circumstances. But at the end of the day, when you run a business and you own the business, it's your fault.
Yep.
It's your problem. It was your decisions that you made, even if you didn't make them.
Were you guys still growing at this time, or was it more of like a rinse and repeat, like just spinning your wheels?
That's the funny part is we were growing because even when things went wrong, we've always been, and even to this day, we've always been able to replace people on our schedule.
Sure.
But what I realized was, so we grew, we kept getting bigger.
And this is probably 07, 08, 09, just so folks know context.
Right through 13.
Okay, so that's everything's kind
13,
of on the come
14, yep. So I'd say like 07 to 14, that 7-year window was like us having anywhere from 7 to 14 guys at any given time.
Sure.
Us having multiple trucks going out, multiple crews, and basically what I had to look in the mirror and discover after a period of years when like I kind of got tired of hitting my head against the wall and was like, you really want to do this? Like, this is going to give you a heart attack one of these days. Like, that is something that runs in my family. My grandfather died of a heart attack.
Sure.
My dad had a heart attack in his 30s. Thankfully, it was a very mild one, but they were all stress induced. And so that's something that it definitely could happen to me. And so I started kind of seeing this coming, and I said, this is going to be you one of these days. And it's not anything you're doing to yourself. You're literally getting destroyed by people who
don't care.
I hate to put it like that, but like this was just a stepping stone for them. This is my life.
Right.
And
I remember you saying you got the George Clooney look, which is a good look. You got that salt and pepper, hair, and I'm sure I'm a minute around the corner, by the way, but I think you told me jokingly, this is something you said like off the cuff like a year ago or something. You're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I owe a couple of these gray hairs to my start in snow plowing and then my 5 years trying to grow my company and just putting the analogy, like you had a bowl of Cheerios, right, and you splash milk in there, and some of them like too quickly escape the bowl, and you were like trying to quickly put the Cheerios back in the bowl. Like the bowl's filling up, but you had Cheerios just kind of falling over, and you're playing this like continuous cat and mouse, put the bowl back together game.
100%. It turned into like, hey, can I get guys to do 80-90% and I'll finish, and
sure.
It just basically
it's a tough phase of the business.
Every time I had people move on, I could replace them, but they were just another step backwards.
Right.
And so fast forward 4 or 5 times of that, you've gone from people that with little training, like cared enough to actually get this, to like literally people with warm body and a pulse,
Right.
that now you're actually paying even more money to, because now we're starting to run into this whole employees aren't working for $10 or $12 an hour anymore in our market.
Okay, so this is a really interesting insight, because so many folks, and with my whole YouTube story, like I know there's different phases of the business, right? I've talked many publicly times about there's a 0 to 250 business, there's that 250 to 1.2 window, and there's the 1.2 to like 3, the 3 to 5, the 5 to 10, so there's this huge different phases. And I hear guys like Troy and Ballard and so many other guys that have been on the podcast, right? And in fact, you and I we both know Troy Clogg.
We do.
You know him way better than I do. But Troy said in a video I just did, and by the time this podcast comes out, it's probably been out a month or two. So if you want to check it out on YouTube, awesome. We did a whole walkthrough of his corporate facility. But you had just, when you got to my house, you said, great video. It was awesome for Troy to open up his place like that. But you said, what's the biggest thing I got out of that video, Brian? And I'm like, what's that? And you had said, where Troy had nonchalantly said that if you get your business to a certain plateau that's extremely profitable, that's okay. And you should even evaluate being content there. Like bigger doesn't always mean better.
100%.
And the reason I say all that is because, Mike, I get guys all the time. They're like, why aren't you getting 2 new crews and starting a landscape division? And I confide in you, and I'm like, Mike, what's some good next moves? And you're like, well, being somebody who grew 3 times larger than where you're currently at and then receded back to a very healthy level, your business is still bigger than mine. I'm not in competition, but so you still have a little bit more insight that I can glean from. But you're like, no. You're like, bigger is not always better. And let me give you 17 horror stories, 3 good stories, but here's 17 horror. So like when people confuse theory, right, with actual wisdom,
yes,
I always lean onto the wisdom,
right?
Because they always think bigger's better, Mike. So you can speak to that. That's a loaded question.
Bigger's not better. And it's funny you brought up Troy Clogg, because I had this conversation with him precisely. And he's a good father figure. He's seen he's seen my business at different stages. And I was having lunch with him at his shop, and he's actually having a big gathering there. And him and his right-hand man, Matt, actually came and sat at my table and had lunch, and we were chatting. And Troy and Matt very plainly said to me, yeah, there's no shame in you doing you. In fact, don't ever think you need to become this to be successful. They were like, don't get it wrong, Mike. At this point, we can only get bigger or we fail.
Sure.
But at your point, you can stay the same size. Right. You can figure out how to make more money. You can get bigger. You can get smaller. You don't even realize how many options you have that we don't.
Right.
So he's like, I'm not saying I want to be you. Right. But if I were you, and you like being you, you should be you, Mike. You shouldn't try and be anyone else.
I like that.
That was very powerful.
Well, I just got to learn that probably secondhand from you as we became friends and we even got to know each other, which, is only 4 years ago.
3 years.
I mean, it's only 3 years ago. It seems like yesterday, but it's not been a decade, which sometimes it also feels like a decade.
Sure.
Because of how much I've learned in that 3 year window. But yeah, so I ended up hearing that from you. I've ended up hearing that from so many people that I'm interviewing. And so I just say that even if you guys are out there and you're like, well, the next step of my 200,000 out of your business is 400,000 next year. I'm like,
cool, go do it if that's what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
But like just know that it may not always go as you're thinking in your head.
Right.
And the key to actually being successful is being able to roll with those punches. I think it's Mike Tyson who says everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth.
Yes.
Try getting like railed in the mouth like 19 times in a row to the point where you're hardly standing. And then tell me what your game plan is.
Exactly.
Because I've been there in business, and it is awful.
Sure. No, well, I mean,
it is awful. And I'm super blessed, Brian, that I'm still in business and was in a good enough spot at that moment, even though things sucked.
Right.
I was in a good enough spot to turn things around. And I had enough patience and wherewithal to truthfully, there were points where I almost quit during that, and
the industry, the business,
not necessarily the industry, but went and worked for somebody else, or took an opportunity in a different state.
Right.
I there was a point where I was actually kind of looking at doing other things whilst running BPM, because I just wasn't very happy doing this. I lost seeing the future in doing this because I was letting other people take that dream away from me.
Sure. Well, and some of it was family, some of it was coworkers, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, what do they always? There's the old like one. It's like the man with of opinion is always at the mercy of the man with experience.
Sure.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And so I mean, trust me, I love the two-way street that I get from YouTube, but believe me when I say, like, I passed a lot of thought through a lot of people that I know. You're always one of them. I'm like, hey, Mike, what do you think about this, and this? What do you think about, you know, diesel truck? What do you think about the simplest thing to the macro thing?
And I'll always just give you the really honest answer, and then I'll try and follow it up with like how I think it's applicable to you.
Yeah, you are a very you're a very fluid guy. Where what I mean is, like, you're very, like, unbiased. You're very like neutral.
Yeah,
you're like a great soundboard.
Well, it polarizing doesn't work for me. It's not my personality to begin with.
I agree.
But
you're Gumby, you know?
This journey has made me Gumby. I was much more opinionated and polarized probably when I played in a band and when I was like going to do this and take over the world and be the next big company. And,
sure.
All the big players in our market better watch out. And now, like, honestly, I want nothing to do with any of that. I think we're all playing on the same team, to be honest. It's us versus knowing our worth and raising the prices in our industry and getting paid what we're worth.
Agreed.
And and there's not enough labor to do all this work, so we're not competing for work. We're competing against ourselves, trying to get it done at this point.
So much wisdom there. Like, it's not even funny because Troy said that as well. You know, he's like the industry gets to charge what it charges, not because of what the customer deems, but what we as contractors deem. And if we keep underbidding each other, right? Yeah, like, we're not cycling up. And as Troy had said, there's less and less people every day willing to do what we're willing to do. And so it's so cool to see guys like Troy, and that filters to you, and you to me to the podcast, you know, and all this.
Absolutely.
So it is really, really a unique perspective.
We're in a lucky market where, it's chaotic and a lot of people are involved, but there's a shift, and the people that have survived and are still here in like this past 5-year window now get that we have to work together. Versus, I will say, when I started 10 or 15 years ago, we were like, no one was friends. We were all enemies. We were all competition. No one talked to each other. No one waved. Versus now, like, I make it a thing. I waved to everybody that I see in my industry when I'm out and about, and half the time people are really excited and wave back, and other half people think maybe I'm a little crazy, and I don't care, dude. I don't care, because we should all be friends. We should all be working together. Like, our struggles are all shared.
Well, dude, you and I in our last 36 months have probably done $50,000 worth of work together.
Yeah, and that's in the past 2 years.
Yeah, so it's like
we've done more than that. So says QuickBooks.
So says this episode is brought to you by QuickBooks. No, okay. But that's
hit the link in my bio and save 10%.
There you go. So, but that's
half off actually. But I digress.
You're an OG. You know, you've built half of these systems because you've been around forever.
That's not entirely true.
So, let's keep going because we're already almost at an hour. But let's keep it going here. Where I want to talk to you about 2 to 3 minutes. Can you dance on your precision with weather? Here's what I want to ask you. You got 5 minutes here to talk about weather. You went from hobbyist to like Mike Bedell, the weatherman. I joke. I have a weather rock.
Yeah, you do. I reference the weather rock frequently.
And sometimes the weather rock is just as accurate.
It's honestly this year, this weather. I've even said, my girlfriend's like, "What's the model, Sam?" I'm like, "I'm waiting on the weather rock."
We gotta see what Brian's weather rock says.
I'll believe it when it's on the weather rock.
Well, and there's been so many times we're out potentially plowing snow, or about to plow snow, or you're plowing snow and I am sleeping, or I'm like, "Bedell, there's already 2 inches out here," and you're like, "But it said this," and I'm like, "It's overperforming," and I learned that word from you. But like you and I today. This year, the weather rock is, I think.
Yeah, there's been times you're like, I'm out doing this. And I'm like, oh, I'm still in bed. And you're like, why? I'm like, because we're going to get another 3 inches, bro.
This is true, too.
I'm going to enjoy this sleep because I'm going to be out there for a long time cleaning up 5 inches, but you're going to go back and clean up another 3.
That's a double charge, Mike. That's my strategy.
Hey, boom.
Don't give it away, okay?
Bada boom.
Okay, so here's 2 questions I got, and you can take it away for a few minutes here.
Sure.
A lot of folks want to get into our industry. And
Sure.
they ask me a lot about college.
Sure.
So was it vital? Is it critical? Is it extra? Of course, there's the thought process of just shadowing, working for another company, maybe starting and cutting your teeth, right? Like, of course, there's social media. We didn't have that 10 years ago.
Definitely not.
But is it a make it or break it? What's your thoughts about college for an 18 to 22-year-old kid? Was it worth your investment or no?
All right, so we'll do college and then weather.
Let's do college, then weather. Because those are the two biggest questions I always get about Mr. Bedell.
So our buddy CNI down in Chicago actually shot me the same question on Instagram.
Yeah.
But he phrased it as, did I think college is worth it for me? And I think that wasn't what he was intending to ask. I think he was intending to ask, did I think college was worth it for him?
Sure.
And was it worth it for me? 100%.
Okay.
And there's two main reasons for that.
Sure.
The reason I elected to go to school at all was I saw where I was going to fail if I wanted to do this.
Okay.
I had no all right, so part of what it sold me on wanting to do this and then sharing with my parents and then being like, okay, give it a try, you're not wrong.
Right.
Is there's all sorts of people that want to start a business and they open a bakery and no one comes and buys their bread and muffins.
Sure.
And they fail.
Sure.
And there can be a lot of reasons for that: bad marketing, too expensive, on and on and on and on.
Right.
But I was a kid. I was trying to be a musician, trying to figure out my life. But I was like, I had more people asking me to cut their lawn and mulch and pull some weeds and cut this small tree down and on and on and on. Then I said no to a lot of stuff because I just didn't care, didn't need the money, didn't want to do it.
Right.
But it dawned on me like, dude, you're not trying to have a business, but you could have one if you wanted to. And there's lots of people out there that want to have businesses and it ain't going to work for them.
Sure.
So run with that. Mm-hmm. So I could, but I quickly realized that like what would happen is I'd cut someone's lawn, put some new mulch in. They'd be like, this looks so much better. Why does that tree keep losing its leaves?
Right.
And I'd have no idea.
Sure.
No idea at all.
Right.
And I realized like, okay, well, if I knew the answer, I'd probably be able to sell something here, charge more money, or make this property look better, or provide more value to my client, or perhaps all of those things.
100%.
And I was very lucky that my local community college had not only a program, but actually a very recognized program that happened to have some industry icons really running it.
Cool.
And that I didn't know at the time, but I eventually learned what a big deal they were.
Sure.
And so that would be the second part of it. The first part was that it gave me the ability to answer those questions and now have extremely competent understanding of what's going on a plant healthcare basis, hence why I do all your fertilizer work, Brian.
Yep.
So number two was those connections I made. Having a professor who's about to become the president of the International Society of Arboriculture doesn't hurt for your professional development.
Right.
Having a landscape design professor who's like an industry icon who does some of Troy Clogg's design work because he's partially retired, but like can have some fun, and him and Troy are old friends. Mm-hmm. So he does some stuff for Troy, and him and I have worked on some projects together. To have those type of people like teaching you and then offering you some fun opportunities along the way, and then like really championing your success and wanting you to succeed.
Yeah.
Obviously that's paid major dividends for me in my career.
Totally.
So that's why when he asked, hey, was college worth it for me? I was like, absolutely. And here's why. And I could tell like he didn't dig that response. And it's because and I wish I didn't really even get a chance to share with him, but what I would have said had we been sitting having a conversation was like, yeah, dude, but those are my experiences. Sure. You're not going to get any, I mean, you might, but you're probably not going to get any of those same experiences. So you got to learn what it can do and what it did for me. I don't know if it's going to do any of that for you. So think on that, figure it out. So for me, yeah, because it was super calculated. It's no different than if you want to get into snow plowing, you're going to need to invest in learning how to do it, maybe downloading Brian's training course, and then eventually investing in some equipment, maybe starting out with a shovel or a snow blower and then getting a snowplow, or like CNI has, he's gone into like UTVs, or he's got his Toro grandstand, I think that he swaps out or whatever it is. And so there's stepping stones to it, right? And for some people it's college, for some people it's shadowing people, for some people it's developing a relationship with a dealer, like an equipment dealer or a nursery.
So you think
it's mentorship. Mentorship is your key, and that was school. You could just remove Oakland Community College and just replace it with mentorship. Like, I have a couple shingles on my wall because I have associate's degrees. Whoop-de-doo, and those really do help me.
Right.
But I think at the end of the day, it's mentorship.
Yeah, I guess the takeaway that I'm getting from you is that it allowed you to grow your professional development, your business acumen, your the actual trade. Like you understand, you became a horticulturalist.
Yeah, I was held accountable on like you have to know the names of all these trees, the scientific names of them. You need to know how big they're going to get. You need to know like what they look like at different stages. You need to know when to prune them, why you're pruning them, all those things. And if you don't know, you're failing this test. How about that?
So let me ask you this. Okay, here's a really simple question. It's a fastball right down the middle. So it's a loaded question. But how has that helped you with the caliber of clients or the caliber of work or the work that you get? That you do a lot of consulting work.
I do.
People have no idea the macro of your business. It's not just what you see on Instagram and YouTube. There's a whole other thing that you do that you can talk about it or not, but you're based on your dad's background and some networking and some things that you and your company have been brought in on.
Yeah.
It's been a very healthy revenue stream.
Oh yeah.
For projects in the continental U.S. still, but what I'm trying to say is that your professional background, you're the guy that a lot of people go to, and there's a premium for that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So that's it.
You're very boutique.
People who are have a status in society, like if you listen to the Bigger Pockets podcast, David Green, one of the hosts, says rock stars like to hang out with rock stars, and that is super true in the music industry, but also not in the music industry.
Sure.
It's in any industry, and so I've done a property for a long time that the guy was the CEO of a very large publicly traded company. And I have gotten numerous other accounts that literally the conversation lasts about 6 seconds. And the guy goes, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. I live in this area. Do you do so-and-so's house?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Great. You need to get something in front of me so I can sign it and we can get you going."
Right.
And that's the end of it. Like, prices don't matter. I don't need to there's no whoa, so while we're here, we could also prune your hydrangea. Like, they don't care. Put them all on line items. Give me prices. Give me something to sign. Let me know how much you need for a deposit and let me know when you're coming. I really don't care.
Because of the caliber of the clients and some of the different projects.
And they want to be able to go to the golf course and say, "Yeah, just got a new landscape guy. He's the same guy who does XYZ company's CEO's house." And all his buddies are going to go, "Bro, that's awesome."
So you're the guy, and you're the high caliber guy.
Yeah, I've kind of moved into that. And there are other people who are also the guy. I'm not exclusively the guy, but I am definitely in our market, thankful and blessed to be one of the guys.
Smart.
And there's That's it. But I can back it up. I can walk the walk. And I've said that on stuff we've done before. You can get the work, but you got to keep the work.
Right.
And I'm very good at keeping the work. And part of why I've gone to a smaller company is because other people can't mess things up for me anymore, Brian. I get to keep the work now. And
quality
because
control.
people get to work directly with me, if I don't like working with them anymore, they come right off our schedule.
Totally, dude.
And I've done that to world-class wedding venues and other people who, when they got sideways with me, I got all my money and they needed to go get a new landscaper. And they're still struggling to replace me. And I'm not saying that in a cocky fashion, but
for sure.
I just had that conversation last week where they're still trying to replace me.
We've had those conversations, and because we confide, we shoot DMs back and forth and group chats, and you're like, "Dude, I'm sick of this," and I'm like, "Dude, just being a friend, objectively, bye. You're like, "Yeah, but this account pays XYZ." I go, "But Mike, I know you could replace that in 6 weeks." You're like, "Yeah, what am I thinking?"
And I do it.
It keeps
us
sharp.
I replace them.
Keeps us both sharp.
Yeah, and I replaced that wedding venue with a guy who owns a sports team. So I'm real sad about losing that.
Yeah. Well, and the guy who has a sports team and the home and all this other stuff, beautiful. I mean, it's right down the road from us. And anyway, so what's the takeaway? Is that if you want those premium prices and that premium business, that you got to be nobody pays good money for 2s and 3s.
You got to be a 10 all the time. And Brian, I've shared with you how there's the other side of the coin. I've shared with you some of the anxiety that I get and that I've developed. And because you're like, "Dude, it's just plowing snow. It's not a big deal." I'm like, "You don't understand who I'm plowing snow for." this is like very similar to being the star player on a sports team. And if you don't go out and score touchdowns or goals or whatever, like right now, you don't want to wake up and read what's in the news tomorrow. And same thing. If I don't perform, I know what call or email is about to come, and I'm really not going to be happy with myself. Because that's the whole thing. And when you're totally in charge of your own destiny, and you are the small boutique guy, you're wearing the hat, like, and there's no at other points in my business, I'll always take the blame, but I was not on the field when the ball was dropped. I sometimes I wasn't even the state, and that's probably part of the problem. And you can't always be everywhere all at once, but at the end of the day, I'll take all the blame. But it was a lot harder to sleep at night because there just wasn't much I could do to change the situation. Now these are all things that are all on me. And in turn, I will do things to win that a lot of other people would just go home and go to bed. And you've seen what some of those things are.
You work a lot. You work harder than I do in your traditional business than I do in mine. I know that. Make more by design by doing so. But dude, I'm not trying to chase down your clients and what you're doing. That is like, we have our lane. We always joke about.
Totally, stay in your lane.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm like, Bedell, you do you, and you're like, Brian, just do you. It's like, it's almost like there's no right or wrong answer.
Hey, there's moments where you've definitely been like, wow, so you do that, and make that's amazing. And I'm like, but you get to go do that and be home by this time and make that. Like, dude, the grass looks pretty green on your side to me too. So
you got to do what makes sense for you.
Yes.
Okay, so last two things that we'll wrap this one up with.
Totally.
Dance on weather for 2 minutes. Where did your affinity with weather and predicting, because it's made you money, it's saved you money.
Totally.
Spend as much time on that as you want, and then just maybe we'll wrap up the podcast with the last 5 minutes of where do you see BPM in maybe the next 2 to 5, 10 years. So
absolutely,
super simple.
Totally. All right. So my love from the weather, and this ironically goes back to maybe this is my first like iteration of cutting grass. So I had a bubble mower at age like 2 or 3.
What's a bubble mower?
So kids, I don't know if they do that.
Oh,
anymore.
You mean the little
push mower that pushes out bubbles as you push it forward.
Okay.
So
I thought it was like a different brand.
My neighbor, when I was like 2 or 3 years old, Mrs. Eden, was out cutting her front yard. I still remember her name, Mrs. Eden. I think it was like a green lawn boy mower, the ones that have like the offset front tire.
Sure.
Great mower. And she's out there working away. I'm behind her with the bubble mower, and my mom comes running outside and picks me up and points at her, and that's because of a really, really, really bad storm is about to hit.
Oh.
And, we're mowing the lawn, got the lawnmower going. We can't hear the tornado sirens going off.
Oh, no.
But a tornado touched down one street over from me when I was 3 years old. And I remember the sound of it. I remember the house shaking a little bit.
Wow.
And for whatever reason, it kind of put the fear of God into me. Where, like, now, like, even, like, for something about severe thunderstorms, like, I get this spidey sense about them, and I can smell them coming hours ahead of time.
Oh, yeah.
Just based on, like it's going to storm later today. And you're like, what? The weather says it's fine. And we get, like, a severe thunderstorm watch 3 hours later.
PTSD going on.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But, like, I had to fast forward, like, 10, 15 years later, I have a home computer and an internet connection.
Okay.
And over time, there's just been access to more and more data. I'm a nerdy guy, like I kind of shared earlier on.
Sure.
I did pretty well at standardized tests in math and science. So insert weather here.
Okay.
I prefer to digest raw model data compared to opinionated forecasts.
Sure.
I can go down the rabbit hole of saying that some of that's propagandized. Why do they name storms now? Because it makes money.
Right.
All that fun stuff. But for my purposes, part of it is like if I know what's coming, I'm personally safe now.
Right.
Tornadoes can't come get me, hopefully, knock on wood.
Sure.
But the other part of it is this whole, I'm doing landscape projects, and knowing what the weather's going to be like in pretty good detail will allow you to effectively route yourself. And you're not like stunned that rain's moving in today and just ruining your route. Like I know what's coming sometimes a week or so ahead of time. It doesn't always pan out. But same thing with we touched on it with snow plowing, right? In the winter. To be able to know what's coming down the pipeline in reality, but then also some worst case scenario variables. Most of the time when stuff overachieves, it's not like I didn't know this was coming.
Sure.
It's just the worst case scenario playing out.
Right.
And so in turn, like I'm like, okay, well, this is now what's going to happen because it appears this model was correct and some of the other ones are busting right now.
So
in terms of accuracy and not being correct.
So you know the biggest thing in business is 2 words: no surprises.
Yes.
So you become this hobbyist, weather.
Yeah.
So here's long story short. A friend of mine, he's a pilot,
Yeah.
and he goes, and becoming a pilot, I also sort of became a meteorologist.
Totally.
And I didn't really totally understand that back then, but I get it now.
Yeah.
So I'm a
He has
landscaper.
to.
Yeah, I'm a landscaper. Yeah, for catastrophic reasons.
Right.
Hello. And same thing with our business.
Totally.
So you and I had joked, because I actually talked to you about this 2 weeks ago, saying I want to bring this up on the podcast. And you're like, Brian, I will transparent. What did you say? You said it saved you money.
Oh, yeah. In transparency, knowing the weather has easily put 6 figures in my company's pocket with not wasting materials, not wasting labor, not wasting my time, not wasting my clients' money. I mean, I see it in our industry all the time. Guys go down, throw a bunch of salt down, didn't know we were going to get 2 or 3 inches, and they plow it all right back up to put more salt down, and somebody's paying for that. And if it's seasonal agreement, the contractor is, and if it's a per push, per event type agreement, like we tend to lean towards, that client's now paying for double the salt, and that's totally fine until they catch on to it or someone gets them apprised to what's going on, and then you're toast.
Well, dude, I'll be totally honest with you. There's times in the summer where I got me and my guy or guys, and we're gonna go mow, and we get an 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Now, for me and my mowing schedule, like I'll take that because I have money. I have 4 or 5 days of mowing,
and you got route density, so it's a real good setup for you.
Yeah, we'll get half my day done by 11 o'clock. Now. But there's also times where I get up with me and my guy where they're at 8:30 and it's raining at 9:30. I'm like, what the shit, Mike? There's no. Okay, so I'm using freeware everything, and you get what you pay for. Yes. And I'm like, the Weather Channel didn't say anything about a storm tonight. You're like, oh, that's interesting. I said, you're like, did you check this, and this? I go, no. Why? You're like, oh, well, these reports said rain by 10:30, and you're like on the dot, like on the minute, and I'm like some Back to the Future thing here, right? And I'm like, Mike, where did you get this info, right? And so it's cost me money,
totally.
Michigan 2-hour minimum on my employees, and we worked for an hour. I'm like, well, shit, that just cost me $14 or whatever.
Totally.
But here's the deal. A company like yours, or maybe somebody who doesn't have I'm in 1 mile, 100 clients. My business is like that by design. But you travel 30 to 40 minutes to a very wealthy area.
Yes.
And by the way, you get over there, like you said, with 3 guys and 12 loads of fresh mulch from the yard. And now you got 12 yards of soaking wet mulch and 3 guys standing around with their hands in their pocket. An hour away.
Yep.
And then it hits lunchtime and everything gridlocks in Metro Detroit. That could cost you $500.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so...
Oh, yeah. Or you get sod delivered, and then it rains, and it sits there for 3 days.
Oh, God.
And can you even put that sod down? Or are you scrapping six pallets of sod and getting new sod delivered? Like, there are... You get into... It's one thing to cut grass.
Right.
And like you said, it can burn you, but it's not as bad. But if you get into landscape projects... you can take it very hard on the chin.
Sure.
If you don't have a plan, you're not
playing offense.
Yeah, and you're not ready for that plan to have to change because just because you know a lot about the weather, it can do a couple negative things. It can give you anxiety because all of a sudden all the worst case outcomes.
Sure.
Or you're putting confidence in stuff that isn't maybe performing very well. Like I was saying, I've been kind of buying the weather rock theory lately. Why? Because none of the storms we've gotten this winter have been well. There's been no model continuity, which is extremely rare.
Right.
But beyond that, there's other than that real early storm we had. That's the Canadian models nailed that. There's been not really one storm that any specific model would get awarded the winning championship for just absolutely accurately.
Sure.
Now they've all so in turn
low tech and high tech.
They're good to know. Like we could get some winter weather here over the next week. It's going to be slow through the weekend, but next week could get interesting.
Yep.
could. Like, there's already things I've seen on the models that I'm like, okay, well, how are we going to get snow on Tuesday when it's 38 degrees?
Yeah,
like, tell me more.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and by the way, okay, so the reason I bring this up is because it is very fun. It is a hobby of yours, but it's something that sincerely I want to take more serious in 2020 as I continue to learn. And it's just funny. I'll be honest with you guys. Like, I don't have it all figured out. Mike, how many times have you? Okay, now it's not as bad as what we're thinking, okay, but it's happened 2 or 3 times. Has it happened where you call me at 5, 6, 8 in the morning and it goes right to voicemail? And, and then I get how many times have I called you back at 8:45 and I'm like, hey Brian, it's Bedell. Just want to let you know there's 3 inches on your commercial site at Sherwin. Not sure if you're plowing that or you just expected me to salt that out. I've been out here since 6 and I wake up pastel. I do the 3 S's, poop, shower, shave. I'm gone. I mean, I'm out there in 8 minutes like Tasmanian devil.
Oh, yeah.
And then I call you back. But what happened? I'm like, it was supposed to be a dusting to an inch. And you're like, yeah, it overperformed. And, but you knew that, right? And like you say it like funny and sarcastically. And I'm like, no. And you're like, you know,
I gotta say, I do love giving you a little bit of a hard time.
Of course.
On those few times because we're friends
Yeah.
and because honestly, you're so on top of everything.
I try to be.
That it's like, oh, there's something that Brian didn't do correctly. Oh my God, Instagram. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like people wouldn't believe it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, hey, 80,000 followers or subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
Do you know Brian makes mistakes that aren't a mailbox or garage door? And people are like,
well, and what do I always say? I always say, Bedell, I never want to get in your way, right? Like you solve for me.
Oh, you're
So I'm super respectful.
You are very respectful.
I'm like, because I don't want
and you don't.
No, I don't want you to.
It's a win-win for all of us, dude.
Yeah.
Things are always end up being so well timed.
Yes.
Even when things go wrong.
Yeah.
At the end, and there's moments where you're like, I'll scramble over there. I'm like, well, I'll circle back after I do these. Like, it ends up never being a big, like, I needed to circle back, but it puts me right by Site 1 Wixom anyway, and I needed to refill the salt hopper, so darn.
Well, and that's just being team players working together.
Absolutely.
But I don't take it for granted.
Neither do I.
There's things I don't do in life, man. I don't mess with people's money. I don't mess with people's time.
Yes.
And I don't want to mess with either of yours. Do I pay you as you're a subcontractor of mine for salt?
Absolutely.
When you send the invoice, how long does it take for you to get paid for me, generally speaking?
Gosh, hours if that.
Maybe 48 hours tops.
Yeah, if that. And so
maybe a week.
Part of why Brian gets that level of treatment is there back like 10, 15 years ago there was a joking term that went around the internet called equal opportunity hate, that like stop being racist. I hate everybody, right?
Sure.
And so I've applied that theory where like, hey, it doesn't matter whether you own a pro sports team or a YouTube channel or just a house in suburbia.
Yeah.
If you pay me the fastest, you're my favorite client.
Amen.
Because why am I in business?
Right.
Cash flow. I'm here to make money. Like yes, I enjoy the relationships. I treat everyone like family. I have a boutique company. I'm able to do that where I'm lucky enough to have meals with clients and be treated like a member of the family by their animals. And I don't take any of that for granted at all. But at the same time, like it's a business and I'm here to get paid. And the people that pay the fastest, it quickly becomes, whatever you want, man, you're paying for it. And Brian is a great guy to work for. I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels this way because you get it. You take care of the people the way, and it's the same thing. Our other clients who throughout the years, and some of them, they're no longer with us because they're no longer with us on this earth. They are people that like, gosh, if they ever came back for a day, they get such red carpet treatment because they earned it, man. They took so good care of me and sometimes my staff. Back when I had a bunch of people, there were clients that like anytime we were doing anything, pizzas were showing up.
Totally.
And, I wasn't there, but they were giving guys tips. And
by the way, this isn't just something me to you. This is something that I doubt you picked it up from me because you're a class act way before I met you. But I was at Weingartz about 2 weeks ago at this point.
Yeah.
And I saw James up there, and James like, yeah, your boy just stopped by. I'm like, who? He's like, Bedell. I'm like, oh yeah, what's up? What was Bedell doing? He's like, oh, he's doing something with his snowplow or whatever you're doing. And he goes, yeah, he bought us 6 dozen donuts, 2 for the sales team, 2 for the service team, and 2 for the guys in the back that, prep trimmers and blowers all day.
Absolutely.
And those guys get no love, and they just get whipped,
Totally.
But you had brought 6,000 donuts up there. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds like Bedell. And so here's the deal. Like, here's a quick takeaway: treat people right, treat people respectfully,
treat everybody like you want to be treated. And so the clients that treat me that way, I'll give them whatever they want because I know what it's like to be treated terribly.
Totally. And as my cash flow in business has gotten bigger and grown, and the money pads the account, and I confront it, you always give me net 30. That's totally standard. Yeah, you're like, dude, take your time.
You have it's depending on the account. You basically ask for the terms that you need based on the account that we're doing, and I'm fully when I send you the invoice, I'm not expecting to get paid fast.
Sure.
But it seems to always happen.
I pay you. I mean, like it's anybody I work with, man. Like
because you get it. You know that the next time you do work with that person, you're gonna get A+ effort.
Well, I mean,
and you're not expecting it. It's not implied,
right?
But you just know because that's how you do it. The people that take care of you, you make sure that they're super happy. You always make sure everyone's happy.
Yeah.
But the people that take care of you, you make sure are super happy.
Well, and here's one thing that I'll say is that I don't want anybody to think, I don't want to go see Brian, work with Brian, do something for Brian, right? Gosh, Brian takes forever to pay. Gosh, I don't want those ill feelings, ill thought. I don't even want them to be an opportunity of a thought in somebody's brain.
Exactly.
I want you to think, if I say pizza, your brain just starts salivating, Pizza Hut, like you're excited. And I want, hey, it's snowing, I'm going to go lay a ton of salt, 5, 8, 10 tons of salt for Brian. Awesome. I know Brian's going to pay, boom, like he's good for it.
So you've grown your snow business this year, and there's been 2 or 3, 4 times where you've been like, hey man, I got a new account.
Yes.
Just double checking. You'd be good to salt it because we got them locked up, and you know what you need to charge.
Yeah.
And so in turn, you're out there selling it, and you're never like, hey, go do this.
No.
But you're very respectful, and you're just like, hey, I got another one. You want to go do it?
And I ask.
And you ask.
I don't assume.
You don't assume, but the way you've developed the relationship,
you're
pretty sure you know what the answer is going to be because this is just what we do. This is one of the ways that we work together as friends, and we make money.
Well, I was just going to say, I like seeing my friends succeed.
Me too.
I like seeing my friends get rich.
Absolutely.
I'm a capitalist, and I think the people around you, if you can help, okay, good for you if you succeed, but I know that the next season or next phase is trying to help those around you succeed.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, here's my only desire when I call Mike Bedell is, hey, I might say, hey, do you want to do this landscaping job, this prune job, this whatever job? But what I'm really saying is, hey, I want to put money in my friend's pocket. Would you like to accept?
Absolutely. And that's what I'm hearing. Every time I'm like, absolutely. I'd love to go make money with you, Brian, and help us both succeed and achieve all our goals in the fastest way possible.
And isn't it funny that you and Troy have had this exact same relationship?
Uh-huh.
And that's why you guys are friends and buds.
And he helps me succeed all the time. I mean, Troy provides all my walkway mount.
Yeah.
Something you guys didn't even touch on is Troy has his own landscape supply place.
Oh, the Hot Pink De-Ice.
Well,
a Great Deal Products.
Great Deal Products, which sells Hot Pink De-Icer.
Right.
So he developed his own walkway mount line that you touched on.
Yeah.
And
supporting him,
but he has his own supply place, and that alone, he's reached out when he's trying to buy things in quantity and said, "Hey, Bedell, you want to get in on this and save a bunch of money?" He didn't have to do any of that,
right?
But he likes to see everyone succeed.
I like it.
He's someone who every time I see him and his wife Linda, it's great to see him. We always give each other a big hug, and we're real respectful of each other's time. We're always real busy, but it always is just beautiful to take 2 minutes and catch up and just tell a friend you love them.
Well, dude, and by the way, like you and I, we've been just great friends, great relationship. And then business. 2 years ago, you realized some business opportunity to work together to take things off of my plate, which I appreciated with the fur and the salt, and it's just been totally a good relationship.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's just wrap up with this. First off, I super appreciate you being on the podcast.
My pleasure, dude.
We're probably going to do a part 2 here, so if you guys want to stick around.
Love it.
I'm not sure if it'll come out next day or next week, but here's the deal. We're going to do a part 2 talking about how we met at Weingartz Open House.
Yeah, Weingartz.
Our whole business relationship and friendship. We're going to talk YouTube and your pet project, the Debt-Free Landscaper.
Yeah, totally.
We haven't even gotten into the tip of the iceberg on our friendship and conversation. I will say this, outside of my wife, my CPA, you know me probably as good as anybody.
Sure.
With what I make, what I charge, my cash flow, my business. 2 years ago, I just opened it all up. Yeah. I said, here's where I'm at. Here's what I'm trying to do. Here's my gross. Here's my net. And your friendship and your mentorship has been huge.
Well, I appreciate that.
And I'm sincere. Like I was sending you numbers yesterday and you were like, is that in the last 6 weeks? And I went, yeah. You're like, yeah, dude, good for you. I'm like, dude, that wasn't even a number.
Yeah.
3 years ago. In that window.
I love nothing more than seeing my friends succeed in this industry. Like I said earlier, there's more than enough work for all of us.
Yeah.
If we all go charge what we're worth and go do it and all help each other win.
Yeah.
We're all going to be in such a good spot in 5 or 10 or 20 years. It doesn't even matter who's in office, what the economy is. Believe it or not, people get a lot farther working together in life.
It's true.
And just because I want to have a smaller company doesn't mean that I don't want to work with others. It just gives me the opportunity to work with others who really want it in life.
Well, I will be the first to say that a smaller company, you've had a bigger impact. Because what you've taught me, I've taken it, digested it, distilled it, even made it my own. What works, what isn't applicable.
Yes.
And
which is super smart.
Right. And because you and I have had so many dinners, we'll get into this on the next episode, but the bottom line is that what I want you guys to know listening is that if there's anything that you've learned from me, guaranteed, I've said this many a times, I give a lot of credit to, but guys like Stanley Dirt Monkey, Keith Kalfas, and yourself.
Thanks, dude.
For sure. Those ripples of what you guys, your fingerprints are on what I've done. And that is permeated through 100,000 people that subscribe to what we're doing. And so you are making an impact, dude. Like,
it's hard for me to wrap my head around, especially when, like I just shared with you guys, go back 15 years, go ask people that I went to high school with, and they'd be like, Mike Bedell, lawn care company. Like, what? Like he does what on Instagram now? They see the post for Jobber where I'm playing the guitar, like, okay, I know this guy, but what's all this other stuff he's doing? And, but that's, you just got to go on it in life, and you got to be flexible, and you never know where you'll end up.
This is, well, and I think you were even questioning that 3 years ago when we met. Which is probably a great way to end it and then start the next one. Yeah. So let's do this. You and I were going to get a sip of water. We've been going for about an hour and a half. We're definitely going to get you not only on the next episode, but over summer when you get a down minute, if you want to come back. Because
I'm always happy to be on this, Brian.
There's so much stuff that we didn't even get into with like equipment and where BPM's the next 10 years.
Sure.
Stuff that you've done with your dad with doing stuff in Hawaii and some of these other larger consulting projects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Landscaping, design. I mean, you are a plethora of knowledge. So
I'd be happy to be on as many episodes as people will listen to.
Well, when people commit publicly, right, that means they got to do it now, right? So
I'm all about it. We've always figured out a way to get together and make things work, and I don't see that ending anytime soon.
I know you and I will do probably a couple episodes maybe for salt and snow.
Love that.
Maybe in the fall, late summer in the
Perfect.
fall.
Sounds good.
So let's do this. Hey, any last party? I always try to end it this way with any last minute pearl of wisdom that you want to give the Mike Bedell 10, 15 years ago, or the new guy that's 18 to 25 just getting in?
Absolutely.
Any macro thought, small thought, guiding principle, take it away.
Guiding principle are don't care what anybody else thinks.
That's a good one.
Literally, like totally put your ego to the side, put everyone else's egos to the side. If you're young enough, most of the people that are in your life right now won't be there in 10 years.
Sure.
So really let that sink in, because I wouldn't have believed it, but it's super, super true.
Sure.
So don't focus on what any of those people are doing, what those people think of you, while those people are judging you, and just sit back and spend 5 minutes and figure out, maybe even spend a day, maybe even spend 5 days, and figure out, what do you really want to do? What would that look like? What would some actionable steps be to allow you to go do that? And those things might allow you to go way further than just get out there and make it happen. Because I'm someone who got out there and made it happen, and I'm still making it happen, and things are way more figured out and refined now, but it took 15 years to get there. So if I was able to sit down and have like a a beer, a cup of coffee with younger me and was like, listen, so you want to do this?
Listen, kid.
So there's information that I've given to people through BPM or Debt Free Landscaper that are under 25 who they should just blow the doors off of everything I've ever done because they got a 10-year head start.
Dude, I tell people, if you can't take the 600 videos, my training courses, the podcast, and chisel out a 6-figure income in 36 months, you're just literally not working hard. And I'm not being mean. It's just a fact.
And this goes beyond lawn care. I talk about this with people in the music industry who are 30, 40, 50, pushing 60 years old, and we all have one thing in common.
Yeah.
When we wanted to learn songs, it was called maybe guitar lessons. If you had a teacher who was good enough, it was called your ear and a rewind button, and then maybe you got to like download some tablature music on the internet once that finally came out. Though for people that are older than us, they might have spent a decade or two playing guitar where none of that was available.
Sure.
And so we actually had to like get together with other people and bounce ideas off or take what we thought the way someone was playing something and turn it into our own.
Sure.
And now kids get to watch YouTube videos. And we joke about all the time who like we used to take our favorite song and try and figure out what they're playing.
Right.
Now a kid can go watch like 6 different angles in 3 different videos, 2 of them by guitar magazines, the rest all from fans at live shows or whatever, and like just watch what that guy's doing and pick up the guitar and play it.
It's not even fair.
And it took us like, days, weeks, months, depending how talented you were, to like figure that out. And so it's like that in every industry now. The learning curve has shrunk.
Yeah.
Where like, not saying that school doesn't have its place, but you can learn just as much in other means just as fast if you're a sponge. And the key is to be a sponge.
Well, you are now part of that mill.
Yeah.
And that's going to be like for sure what we're talking about in the second podcast, because now you are part. Your story is in this euphoric now state where your story is getting out there.
Totally.
This altruist, this esoteric Mike Bedell is now out there in the internet, and I'm capturing some of it. You're capturing some of it. You're now part of this. I guess I just say thanks for sharing. Thanks for taking your time.
My pleasure.
Serving the bigger community, serving the folks that get it and they appreciate it. I know they do. And so this has been just a gem having you in studio. We've been trying to knock this out for a few weeks, but hey, it's been snowing.
Yes, it has.
So thanks for taking your time here. Let's do another episode here. We'll rock on with it. Thanks for being on the show, brother.
My pleasure, guys. To whom much is given, much is expected. Go get them.
I love it. All right, guys. Well, hey, there's been another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. So we super appreciate you guys listening in. If you enjoy it, do me a big solid. Hit 5 stars. We really appreciate that. We're seeing the reviews come in. So thank you very much. And for real, if you haven't hit 5 stars, or even if you didn't like the podcast, you know what to do. Hit 5 stars anyway. We really appreciate that. Just having some fun here. But hey, well, guys, we'll definitely catch you on part 2 of this episode. We're going to talk about YouTube, Debt Free Landscaper, how Bedell and I even got to meet, which is just a really cool story that I don't think we've ever publicly shared.
No, just little glimpses of it out there, I think, but not like the for reals version.
Well, I want to hear your version too, because you've seen me from YouTube inception at 1,000 subscribers. So you know my whole story, dude. It's
100%.
It's going to be good. So, all right, guys. Well, over and out here from Fullerton Unfiltered. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast with Brian Fullerton. We hope you enjoyed this production. If so, please consider leaving us a 5-star review for the show. While the techniques and ideas presented here are designed to help you grow a more successful and profitable business, no one can guarantee these results for you. We want to emphasize that entrepreneurship is not easy, and the ideas presented here are just the opinions of Brian Fullerton and his respective guests. No one can guarantee success for you. That being said, we hope the ideas presented here help you and motivate you to go on out there and crush it with your own business.
Fullerton Unfiltered Podcast.
Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.